Awesome. Okay, so drag and drop. Okay, this one's like super, super fun. So what happens here is kind of interesting. So you've got like Spike and Rarity, and Spike's just like always been on Rarity for the entire series, but basically like nothing's really happened with them. So they sort of drifted apart. And so the way this episode starts is Spike has like this book thing, because there aren't like phones, so but he's like writing like notes, and like he's sending notes to Gabby. Gabby sees the girl that the Griffin that the CMC helped, find out her purpose and then find a direction for her life. And so like Spike's like basically dating her now. And so he's just sitting in this room, sending letters and stuff. And Rarity comes in and asks him to like go on this huge like mining thing with her. So, come and mine for, all these gems in this big cave. Like, so she would always go, and she would always need more gems for her fashion business. And so she would just kind of go with Spike, and then they would go, and he would help her find like all the best gems and help carry them, because she would just get like giant baskets of gems. There's kind of a lot of stuff to carry. And so she just, got help from a friend, raised her hand and said, hey, I need some help. Can you help me out? And he would basically just always kind of help her. That's just kind of how it worked. But now, he's hanging out with other people, right? So he's got stuff to do. And basically he's like, nah, I don't really want to go have fun. And for her, like, this is jaw-dropping. She's like, what? Because she thought she had this super, 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 super intimate, close connection, this close relationship. But in reality, it just wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't developing. It wasn't strengthening. And, it was getting closer and closer over time as friends, for sure. But, like, there wasn't a super high level of value there. So Spike went out and basically, like, went to find, more friends, expand his sphere of influence, expand his power base, expand his friendships, right? And so that's what he was doing with Gabby, right? Is just finding new friends, right? And so because of that, he just wasn't able to go help Rarity, and so Rarity had to go and like get gems on her own. It was a big mess. And then after that, Rarity, like, basically, like, Spike would always help Rarity out, but now, he's kind of splitting his time between two people, right? And so, and Twilight and all the other main six, but he's just got like more stuff to do in general. And so, Rarity's out here doing her thing, and she also like has to go to the jeweler. And when she goes to the jeweler, she basically doesn't really know what jewels to buy. So she brings Spike with her to the jeweler, and Spike like can like eat gems. So he kind of like tastes them to figure out which ones are the best. And so she goes to this jeweler guy, but Spike doesn't. He's busy with Gabby, so he doesn't want to come with her to the jeweler, right? And so he, doesn't come, and she basically has no clue what to buy. It just gives this guy like a bunch of money for, basically she has no clue what she just bought, for all these gems, right? And all these diamonds, all these things for her, business. And she realizes that like Spike is a really, really integral part in a lot of her daily activities, and a lot of what she does. She can't really do it on her own. She needs help. But she doesn't really show, how much she appreciates the assistance, how much she like cares about the help. And so what she does here is kind of manipulative. It's kind of not the best thing ever. And she tries to figure out a way where she can basically like pull Spike away from this relationship or this connection and all the activities he's doing with Gabby, which is like super, super manipulative, not really the best thing to do. But she has like this internal fear of, what will happen if this develops and develops and develops and develops. How will this mastermind, how will this connection affect the relationship that she has with him? And she's worried about that. She's fearful, just not 100% sure about what to do or what's going to happen. And so because of her fear, she realizes that she cares about this. She cares about having hope. And it's important for her to have this connection, this relationship. And she wants to sort of, monopolize Spike's time and really have control over what he does so that he'll always be there to help her, and she'll never have to go and like actually do things on her own. So what she does is really kind of harsh. She basically, she knows Spike, right? She knows what he likes. And so like she gets him like tickets to this giant convention that's going on for the Power Ponies, which is like the super cool comic book stuff, and he's like super into that. And so she gets him like special tickets, 2 tickets there, and like draws him away from Gabby, tries to break this off, and basically just pulls him out of town. And then they go out of town, they go to this giant convention, and it's just this like huge convention. And she's like, "Isn't this the coolest thing ever?" And like, cool, yeah, woohoo! We're gonna do this stuff with us rather than with Gabby, right? Because it's like competition now. It's competition over time, which is your most valuable asset because it's the most limited thing. And then what happens is she gets back, and then Spike tries to tell Gabby all about all this cool stuff that he just saw at this huge convention, and that makes Rarity pissed. And so what she does is just it's harsh, but she basically tells Spike, "Hey, let's go on this huge gem trip to because remember, like, dragons eat gems, right? And it's like all they eat. Let's go to this giant gem cavern in the middle of nowhere, and we can have this huge expedition to go and just like you can get all the gems in the whole world." And so she lures him away once again with that, right? So then they go and Spike has like the best time ever. Like, he's just getting treated like a king. It's super cool for him, and he gets like a bajillion gems. He just loves it. It was amazing experience. He goes on this trip for like a day with Rarity, and he comes back. And when he comes back, he tries to tell Gabby about it, right? Because new friendship, new connection. He wants to work towards that. And Rarity sees this, and she is not a fan. So she like really wants to have control over him, which is just really not the strat, right? Like, you can't control other people. You shouldn't try to control other people. You shouldn't try to control their time. It's just not really the way to grow a quality connection, a quality relationship. So what she does next is really not the best. So she's at the castle, right? And she basically like pretends to be sick so that Spike will ditch Gabby and come and play like cards or games with him. And so it's super mean. And so Gabby comes over to like, because Spike tells Gabby that like he's sick and he can't do anything. So Gabby comes over with like hot soup to like make him feel better. And then like he walks in on Spike and Rarity, like walks in on them playing like a board game, whatever, right? And she feels like totally betrayed because she got lied to, and then she's with Rarity and all this crap, and just like totally destroys her feelings and hurts this bond, this connection that they have, right? And Spike feels awful about it. Rarity feels amazing. It's like what she wanted to happen. And she pushes away this new friend, right? And it's super messed up, super manipulative. So Twilight sees this going on, and she has like a one-on-one with Rarity, and she's like, "What are you doing?" Like, you can't like have total control over someone's life. You can't just like force them to be with you. It just doesn't work, Not a way to lead, not a way to grow, not a way to do anything really. And so what happens is really crazy. So like Twilight sees it, and she's like, "Hey, look, you got to cut this out. You can't keep doing this." And Rarity listens to her, and she's like, "You know what? You're right. I agree. Thank you for the outside perspective. Thank you for taking the 10 seconds to actually look at what's going on here and help me figure out what to actually do in this situation." And she decides that she can't just do this anymore, and so she tries to go and sort of mend this connection, mend this relationship, and build this connection with Gabby and say, "Hey, look, I'm sorry." And she spends like the whole day trying to apologize to her, even though she's like super jealous. It's just not a fan. She steps past that and she looks over that and she says it's not a big deal, because in reality, Spike can have his own time. He can share his own time the way he wants. It's not up for her to decide. So huge takeaway here is that you just freaking can't control other people, and you need to let them what? Like, if other people are going to go and spend time with other friends, like, you can't try to force them away from that. Spike's new relationship here cannot tear that away from him, especially by force. You have to let stuff happen naturally. It's just the only common sense way to just have that quality connection with anyone is by respecting their decisions of how they do whatever the heck they want to do, right? Which is just huge. And so it plays out, and she has this huge apology for trying to take Spike away from her, and then they get over the challenge. And in the short term, sure, there's this pain of like having to apologize, and that kind of hurts. But in the long term, they form a connection, they form a bond, they form a relationship, and they have this growth together, and they come together, and they understand each other, and they see themselves, eye to eye. And so in the long term, they do have like a lot of success. It just kind of stems from this idea that they need to be together in a respectful manner, and they decide to meet each other. So really like powerful lesson there from Spike, having like someone new in his life, about this idea that you can share friends, right? You don't have to have like a total monopoly, total control, and you can be generous with others. All you have to do is allow them to have control over their own time, because it's their time. and she has to find new ways to sort of figure out how to do stuff and sort of schedule stuff with Spike so that Spike can come and help him, look at gems or help her go mine for gems. Or taste the diamonds or whatever. But like she's got to respect his time and ask him, hey, in advance, can you do this, right? And so it's just this idea that you can have people treat you any way you want them to treat you, and all you have to do is ask them to treat you the way you want to be treated, and that will change the whole perspective between the two and give you total respect and control over your time and your energy, which is really, really, really powerful stuff. Awesome. Okay, so horseshoeing. Oh, this one's fun. So, remember this idea of delegation, this idea of bringing on new teammates, and this idea of managers managing, the clients or employees or workers. So that's really this core concept of Twilight, right? So she's at the top, and then she's got, vice head mayor, and then the vice head mayor that's who most of the teachers kind of report to, sort of around here. And then all these teachers, obviously, they report to all the kids, right? And all the kids, and then I also report to the parents, right? So the parents report to all these teachers, and they report to the counselors, they report to these management levels like we talked about earlier. So with Twilight going to rule the entire world, basically, she can't really be at the top of the ladder anymore. And so because of that, she's out of here, and she takes Trixie, and she says, hey, Trixie, not Trixie, Starlight. She takes Starlight. She says, Starlight, hey, do you want to come and be the new head mayor? And Starlight's like, sure, that's freaking cool. But now she's got this question of, okay, well, I'm going to be the new head mayor. And Twilight says, awesome, go and, hire a new vice head mayor. And so she's like, okay, well, who should the vice head mayor be? And so since Starlight and Trixie are super close friends, Trixie instantly thinks that, oh, she's going to be the new vice head mayor, right? And so she, Starlight tells her this. She's like, oh, cool, I would love to work. And just kind of instantly assumes that it's hers. But Starlight has to pick the best person for the job. She can't just give it to her friend. And so alongside Trixie, and so if you ask some other candidates like Spoiled Rich, Big Mac, Dr. Hooves, and also Octavia, yeah, you kind of see them all in the picture right there. And so everyone kind of lines up, and he's like, okay, well, one of you guys is going to be, the vice head mayor. It's got to be someone. I got to pick somebody for this job because she can't do everything. She needs some help as, vice head mayor. So, and she's also the guidance counselor, right? So it's just a lot of work to do. And so she decides to go through this process, right? And she says, okay, well, we're going to go through some activities, and then she's going to weed out a couple of them. There'll be a couple guys left, and then there'll be 3 finalists. She'll pick the one winner after she, does everything here, right? And so she has to go through this process. Okay, well, how do I eliminate people? And see, the thing that is, she's going through this process. She's trying to pick out these correct individuals to work through. Trixie takes it super, super lighthearted, and she just doesn't think that it's important or matters at all. And she thinks that this is just a formality, and in reality, she thinks looking at the whole thing that she's obviously going to get the job, and there's no challenge whatsoever, and she doesn't have to try at all. And so because of that, they go through all these challenges, right? And Trixie does really, really, really poorly. There's this one example where they have a parent-teacher conference, and she's supposed to handle objections and take care of the parents. And she basically just yells at this one guy and tells him to drop his son out of school and leave, which is not the best way to handle a social challenge, social disruption, right? And instead of punishing her for that and saying, look, you're out, you're done, this is not going to happen, you fail, she sort of uses this friendship, right, and the connection that they have as a leverage point. And she's sort of begrudgingly says, all right, you know what, you can move on to the next round, okay, sure. And she's forced into moving on to the next round, and then the next round. And then there's just a couple of people left. It's her and Octavia and Big Mac, and they're standing there, and they're trying to figure out who should be this new vice head mayor. And Starlight is constantly, over and over and over again, she's walked into this office and basically said, why are you doing this whole competition thing? Can't you just hire me? And it gets to the point where they're basically doing this class, right? And they say, hey, all right, you guys have to host a class and teach something as a substitute teacher. And, the other candidates, they do really, really well. They bring in their own thing, they teach their own thing, and it's super well organized. And they just give it effort. They give it all they got. And they really, really, really try for the students, right? And then Trixie comes in, and she says she's going to do a magic show. And she also pulls out a history book and says history is boring, and I can't believe you guys are doing this. This is boring, which is somewhat true. But and she's it's so harsh. And she just doesn't put in any effort whatsoever. And then after like just sitting there and literally falling asleep in the chair, she wakes up and like teleports like a giant, bear into the classroom and freaks everyone out and causes huge panic, huge mayhem, because she's not like actually trying. And for Starlight, like that was sort of the last straw. She says, "Look, Trixie, really love you. You're not a great candidate for the shop. You're not a great candidate for this position. And there are much higher qualified candidates." And you kind of see this in government where like people will reward their friends with, cash versus people that are more qualified. Starlight does the difficult thing, which is, basically say, "Look, I'm going to temporarily kind of hurt our relationship and say, look, you're not going to do this. But in the long term, I know it's going to be much better, because if instead I say you should do this, it's going to have a short-term grade. It's going to be awesome for a little bit. But in the long term, you're going to do a crappy job, right? And it's not going to be worth it." And so she does the right thing here, and she says, "Look, you know what? You're out. I'm sorry. I know it sucks. It's not a great thing, but I need somebody who's really going to fill this role much better than you can." She just wasn't very capable of doing this. And at first, like, she's devastated. She's so sad. She's so upset. She thinks that her friend has betrayed her, and she feels awful about it. But then she does something really powerful. She does the right thing. She takes a minute. She steps back. She looks at the situation. And she says, what's really going on here? Like, what does Starlight really want? And she thinks, and she thinks, and she thinks, and she realizes that none of these are actually good candidates, because they don't give Starlight what she really needs. And she thinks about like what Starlight actually needs to lead, what support she would need. And she realizes that Sunburst is probably like the best person like on the planet to fulfill this position right here. And so she brings in Sunburst from the Crystal Empire, brings him in and says, "Hey, Starlight, you should talk to Sunburst. I think he's a good candidate." And she doesn't focus on herself. She doesn't focus on trying to force herself into this position. And instead, all she does is try to add value by providing a quality candidate for this position. And Sunburst is like, "Hey, I could totally do this, because he used to be the Royal Crystaller. Now that Flurry Heart is sort of grown up, he doesn't have as many responsibilities in the Crystal Empire." And so he talks to Starlight, and Starlight's like, "Wow, holy crap, you're actually really qualified, and you're basically exactly who I was looking for this position, and you're much better than all these other guys who, they're nice and they're kind, but they just aren't really a great fit." And she's like, "Holy crap, that's so cool, you're hired, right, 100%. And then she looks at Trixie. And what's cool is like Trixie didn't actually do anything. She didn't change anything in herself. She was the same person she was before. But all she did was add a ridiculous amount of value by giving Starlight this really great candidate. And Trixie says, or Starlight says, "Hey, you know what? I really appreciate that help. Why don't you come on to be the guidance counselor?" And then she's the freaking guidance counselor. She literally created her own position, right? Because she added a ton of value, and then she found a role that she could fit well. She was great at connecting people. She was great at thinking tactically about relationships and connections, and that's exactly what she needed to be a guidance counselor, which was like something that she used to do, right? And so now she's got this old role filled, and they have this great support position for the kids because they put in the work, the energy, and the effort to actually care and find the best person there. And then Trixie was able to look back at it and actually figure out the best candidate for the opportunity, and then give Starlight that candidate and give her the most value possible, which is super powerful. So you can't try to force things, because in reality, like as much as you tried, you cannot force things to go your way. In some situations, right? Like with here, like she couldn't force her way into this role if she would just never be a good fit for her. And at the same time, you can't just assume that you're instantly going to have like a ton, like all the success that you want. Like you have to actually work for it. You have to actually put in the effort, run the miles to prepare for the race. You can't just assume that you're going to win and then not practice or not do any of the work. Like you've got to put the work in to get there, right? So really cool, powerful concepts. All right, awesome. Oh, this one's so fun. Okay, so daring, doubt. Okay, cool. So you've got like Daring Do, right? Daring Do and Rainbow, and they're just having a blast. They're crushing it, and they're having an amazing time. And what's cool is like the adventures and all that stuff has sort of died down a little bit. Because she's just kind of settling down as an author and not too worried about, going out there and having crazy parties all the time, even though they are pretty cool parties. And so she's got like all of her books, right? So she's selling all these books, and the episode kind of starts out in this big bookstore. And as they're in this big bookstore, there's like this huge book signing going on. And So Daring Do's kind of here, and Rainbow Dash is with her because like they're best friends ever. And there's a bunch of people like line out the door getting their book signed. And then like this one reporter guy comes in, and he's like, "Oh, it's Daring Do. Oh, what's going on? Oh, are the myths true? Are the allegations true? Is all this stuff true? Blah blah blah. Did you really hurt these kids, or did you really do all this bad stuff and do all these awful things?" And her readers are asking her too, like, "Did you do all these awful things? Did you do bad stuff?" And she's like, "What are you guys talking about?" And apparently, like, somebody published this book of slander about Daring Do, and it was just like this super giant book, awful things that she supposedly did, like, burnt down a building, or hurt a school, or hurt some kids, knocked down a statue, stuff like that, like all this, these like menial things she did that are like mean in the public eyes, right? And it's like all the negative acts of Daring Do, right? And it's just super mean, and it destroys her public reputation, destroys the respect, the credibility, the authority that she has, and makes a lot of her fans just like turn against her, which is like super harsh. And so, Daring Do is like, "What the heck, man? What's going on?" And so, she goes with Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy. There's this book signing for the guy who wrote this book, who's like this new author. Made freaking cool bank selling this book. And as they go through this process, they go over here to this signing, right? And there's like a line, out the door to have this guy sign their book. And he's sitting at this desk. And as they approach him, like, they realize that it's basically Caballero, who's that evil villain guy in disguise. And that it's just him in disguise, and he wrote this book to make Daring Do look really bad, so that he could sort of scare her away or make her sad or make her upset. I mean, he's just not a nice guy, And so they come up to him and they're like, "Hey, what the freak, man?" And he sees them and he kind of realizes this is going to be a problem, or challenge. So he like walks away and he's like, "All right, guys, see you later. I'm out." And he leaves this book signing. And Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy and Daring Do, they all follow him, and they're like, "Dude, what are you doing? Why are you publishing all these lies?" And he's like, "Some of them are true, they're not lies, blah blah blah." And he asks Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy to actually stay back for a second and ask themselves what Daring Do actually does, and how she actually operates. Because a lot of the things that he writes about, like her destroying cobwebs, or breaking down pyramids, or knocking away like some old historic artifacts, are like actually sort of true. And so they win over Fluttershy to this way of thinking that maybe she should take a step back and actually look at what's going on. And so you've got like Caballero right here, who's like the big evil guy, and then you've got like the guys that he works with and his men, right? And they're like the big evil group, right? And they convince Fluttershy that like she should actually care about what Daring Do does, and how she hurts nature and stuff like that, which is something that Fluttershy cares about. So they like get Fluttershy to join like their group, and they basically say, "Hey, let's go on this expedition over here. There's a giant pyramid, and we should go to the top of this giant pyramid, and if we can get in, then there's like this cool little thing in the middle where it forces people to, it's like a truth artifact. And if you hold it, like, you have to tell the truth, and it's like super valuable, and it's made out of gold, and all that stuff." And so they say, "Hey, we should go and we should figure out what the truth is by entering this special building, or the pyramid, and sneaking in and then taking this artifact," right? Which was like their plan. Well, that was the strat. And so for them, like, that makes sense. But for Rainbow Dash and Daring Do, all they see is Caballero trying to like take this and then go and sell it for a bunch of money, right? Which is just kind of like what he does. He's just greedy and wants to steal things. And so they like see past all this crap, and they're like, "What are you doing, man?" And they're like, you can't freaking do this, what? And so they follow them. They're going through the jungle. They're going on this like huge expedition to go and get this artifact. So they kind of follow them through the jungle, and they get to the point where they have like this impasse, and there's like this big gap, so they're trying to figure out how to get across it. And these guys, they take a break for a second, right? Just to chill out and eat lunch or whatever. And they look at each other. And they're just sitting there eating. And while they're eating, this giant lion like pops out of the bushes, and basically tries to attack these guys and kill them, which is like super, super crazy. These guys are just kind of sitting off on the sideline watching this happen. And, these guys, they all start running away because they're like, holy crap, this is this giant lion thing. He's trying to kill everybody. We got to get out of here. But Fluttershy stands up. She stands her ground. And, she uses her skills with animals to basically, like, tame this lion, make him chill out, and put him down and make him so he's not a threat anymore, right? And these guys like hiding in bushes. They think that she's crazy. She's about to die, about to get eaten. And she just stands tall, stands strong, stays with her core beliefs, her core strengths, and tames this giant lion. And so these guys are like, holy crap, that's so cool. And they start to form a bond, a connection with her, and like actually value her as more than just kind of a tool to get this like thing that they're going to sell for gold, as someone to lie, is more than someone to just lie to about sort of, going to this big pyramid. And so what happens is really, really interesting. So they get here and they find a way to break in with some artifact that they stole, and then they open up like this secret door, and then they go through this path, and basically they get to this chamber at the end. And as they get to this chamber, they're about to like steal this artifact when Rainbow Dash and Daring Do kind of sweep in together as a team. And everyone's kind of here in this end room at the end. And they like say, hey, stop it, you can't steal that. And, Fluttershy's like, they just want to take it to the museum so that they can support the museum. And then, Daring Do's like, that's bogus. They just want to sell it for gold and then make a bunch of money. And so there's this like conflicting viewpoint of like, are they actually good? Or are they bad? Is Daring Do actually bad? Or are the bad guys actually good? And then what happens is really interesting. So, like... there's this guy, Aoizoro, right? Aoizoro was like that big monster guy, and his job is to protect this pyramid. His job is to protect the jungle. His job is to protect the forest. His job is to protect all of the ancient artifacts in the area from people that want to steal it, kind of like, these guys. Or from Daring Do, who would also take stuff. And, he comes in, and his job is to stop them basically from taking all this crap. And so he, like, releases, like, these giant, like, stone, like, bat creatures, and they like basically try to eat everybody, which is kind of crazy. And the two groups, they realize that the only way they're actually going to survive here is if they come together, put aside their differences, and they work towards the common goal of eliminating all these dangerous bat things from killing them. And they decide that it's more important to survive than it is to be right or to argue. And so together, they jump up, they grab this thing, and then they use it to sort of like kill all the bird things, the stone birds. They get and they survive, and then they escape the room as a team, not as an individual. They look at each other and they realize that the only way they can actually get out of this room is by working as a team. They can't do it on their own, and it just doesn't work. And what's really interesting is after they sort of start to break away, they're holding this this artifact, right? And this artifact, like when you hold it, it makes you tell the truth. Like that's just the shit with it, is that like it's the truth stone, and that if you're holding it, like you have to tell the truth. And so like the really bad guy, Cableron, holds it and basically admits that like, yeah, all he wants to do is sell it, and he just wants to get rich, and that's his motivation. And he reveals it. He's like, yeah, that's that. And he becomes totally transparent with his motives and his objectives, and he just lets it out. And then similarly, Daring Do holds it, and she just says, hey, look, I just want to like save this stuff. Don't want it to go and get messed up somewhere. I just want to protect it. What the heck, man? I'm good stuff. And so they're trying to escape, and basically they escape this room. And then Aoizoro, the big monster guy, comes and they chases them into this next room and sort of traps them in this corner. And they're like hiding in this corner from him as he tries to basically like kill them. And they have this truth thing, right? And they like realize that the only way they can actually escape this dead end that they're in is by working together, and most significantly by figuring out the actual truth, by being transparent, by being clear, and by understanding what's really going on here. And so that's exactly what they do, right? They give this truth thing to Aoizoro. They ask him like, what's going on, and he tells them all about how all he wants to do is protect stuff, and that he's really not trying to kill anybody. He just wants to keep his job. And that's exactly what happens, right? And so he goes and he goes and he goes and he goes and he goes as hard as he can. And then they realize they could just work together as a team instead of fighting against each other, and they could preserve these artifacts in a safe way without actually, being enemies. And all they had to do was freaking take 15 seconds tell the truth and be transparent, right? Like, that's the foundation. Your foundation is right here. Like, you need to tell the truth. You need to be transparent. And then what's really, really, really awesome is that once you have this foundation built, you start to build up. And once you build up, and you're able to actually look objectively at what's going on, you have the magic of collaboration. And the mastermind. They come together, they form these actual quality relationships as a team, and now they have success together more than they could ever really hope to have on their own. It's just so powerful, so huge. So they escape, they leave, and then Aristotle goes and he writes his own book. So now you've got, like, everyone's got their books, and it becomes like an instant bestseller, and he makes like tons of banks, like the coolest thing ever. And he has like all of this, overarching success up here because he worked with a team, right? They worked together. They had this epiphany that they should be a unit and a group, not just on their own. And he could tell the truth about his own story, and that would in itself be enticing enough to the public to make him like super, super, super popular. And it all comes from these two concepts of truth and transparency, which are just like, so huge, so powerful. And like once you master that, all of a sudden it's like 10,000 times easier to actually get to this like higher up success, right? Because it all comes from the core. It all comes from the growth. It all comes from the development of the unit and of the group as a team, and then also telling the truth. And so, here's the thing, right? Like, it shouldn't take like a magical truth element or a truth thing to like get you to tell the truth. So just make sure that at a core, as a basic rule, like you're always focusing on the truth. Because once you do that, like your relationship quality of life, it's just so much better. You get much better connections because you're not trying to hide anything, and instead you're actually having the best growth together as a team, which is like super cool, super powerful.